I found $250,000 in cash under my dead son's bed, and that was the moment I realized everything I thought I knew about his death was a lie. My name is Roland Thatcher. I'm 52 years old. For 2 decades, I lived a simple life. No scandals, no secrets, just hard, honest work as a warehouse supervisor at Brennan Logistics. I was the guy who showed up early, stayed late, and made sure every shipment left on time. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, until my son, Colby, died. Colby was 24. My pride, my only son, the kind of young man who called his old man every Sunday night just to check in. He had this laugh, loud and contagious, and when he smiled, it made you believe that life still had good in it. He'd just started his first real job at Ridgefield Trucking Company. Dispatcher. Office job. Safe job. Or so I thought. But the day they called me, "Mr. Thatcher, there's been an accident." Everything froze. They said it was workplace negligence. A freak incident. My boy was gone before the paramedics even arrived. I buried my son on a rainy Thursday. The sound of the dirt hitting that coffin still echoes in my head. I thought that was rock bottom. But I was wrong. Because 3 weeks later, my ex-wife, Jolene, dragged me into a courtroom and destroyed what was left of my life. Picture this: a packed courtroom, the air thick with whispers and judgment. Jolene stood there in a sleek black dress that probably cost more than I made in a month. Her green eyes, once filled with love, were now cold, calculating. Her lawyer, Melvin Ashford, strutted around like he owned the place. You know the type, the billboard kind. Smiling, slick, and dangerous. He looked at the judge, then pointed right at me. "Your Honor," he said, his voice dripping with confidence. Roland Thatcher's negligent approach to workplace safety directly contributed to his son's death. Every word felt like a dagger. He raised his boy to believe that shortcuts were acceptable, that safety rules were optional. And now, because of that mindset, Colby Thatcher is dead. And then Jolene took the stand. My Jolene, the woman I'd loved for 26 years. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You killed him, Roland. Your negligence killed our boy." I couldn't breathe, because none of it was true. I'd spent my entire career enforcing safety. I fired men who ignored protocols. I wrote up anyone who took a shortcut. But suddenly, I was being painted as reckless, as a man whose carelessness killed his own son. Then came the witnesses. 3 former co-workers who swore under oath that they'd heard me brag about ignoring rules. Lies. All of it. But lies told with confidence sound a lot like truth. When the judge's gavel came down, my world shattered. "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff," he said. "All assets and the full insurance payout of $800,000 are awarded to Mrs. Jolene Thatcher." I lost everything in that instant. The house my son grew up in, 20 years of savings, my reputation. Even my name became poison. The local paper called me the father whose negligence cost a life. I became the man who killed his own son. So I did the only thing I could. I disappeared into Colby's old apartment. It was small, quiet, and still smelled faintly of his cologne. I couldn't let go. I needed to be near him. I needed to understand why. Then, one night, while cleaning, I found it, a lockbox. Hidden beneath his bed, behind a loose floorboard, it was heavy. When I pried it open, my hands trembled. Inside were neat stacks of $100 bills. $250,000 in cash. And tucked beside them, 6 flash drives, each labeled with dates. The earliest one, 3 months before Colby died, and then I found it. A handwritten note, my son's handwriting. "Dad, if you're reading this, I'm gone. They'll probably make it look like an accident. The money is from them. I took it as insurance. The drives have everything. Start with the oldest one. Use the money to fight back. To clear your name. Because I know they'll blame you somehow. I'm sorry I didn't listen when you told me to stay out of it. I love you, Dad. Make them pay." My vision blurred. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Colby knew. He knew they would kill him, and they did. I plugged in that first flash drive, and what I saw changed everything. Video files, audio recordings, spreadsheets, logs of deliveries that didn't exist, transactions under false names, hidden warehouses, drug shipments, and then one video that stopped my heart. There she was, Jolene, sitting across from her lawyer, Melvin Ashford, and they weren't just talking legal strategy. They were planning my son's death. Her voice was calm, cold. If he keeps digging, he'll expose everything. The insurance money will cover it. We just have to make it look accidental. Melvin leaned forward. And Roland? She smirked. He'll take the fall. That was the moment I realized. I hadn't just lost my son. I'd been set up by the two people who wanted him dead. For money. I sat there for hours, staring at that screen, my hands shaking so bad I could barely breathe. Every part of me screamed to go to the police. But what could I say? They'd already destroyed my name. Who would believe the negligent father now? Still, I wasn't going to let my boy's last words go unanswered. I went back through everything. His last days, his strange behavior, the conversation we'd had over breakfast just before he died, Murphy's Diner, our Sunday spot. The kind of place where the coffee's burnt but the people know your name. We'd been eating there since Jolene started working weekends. I can still picture him, stirring his eggs, distracted, not touching his food. "Dad," he said quietly, "something weird's been happening at work." "What kind of weird?" I asked. He hesitated. "Some of the drivers are making extra stops." "Not on the manifests. I checked fuel receipts. They're using more gas than the routes require. GPS shows them stopping at addresses not in the system." I remember setting down my coffee, looking at him across the table. He had my eyes, but his mother's sharp jawline. He looked nervous, like he'd already seen too much. "Have you talked to your supervisor?" I asked. "Frank Newcomb?" "Not yet. I want to be sure first. I've been keeping records, screenshots, copies of manifests." "Colby," I said, "report it. But don't get involved. You're new there. You don't know who you're dealing with." He nodded. "Yeah, you're probably right, but there was something in his eyes, a quiet defiance, like he already knew he wasn't going to let it go. Then he said something I'll never forget. 'Hey, Dad, if anything ever happens to me, I want you to know. Everything I've done was to make you proud.' I laughed it off. 'What could possibly happen? You work a desk job. The most danger you're in is a paper cut.' He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Now I know why. 3 weeks later, he was gone. And now, 3 months after that, I was staring at proof that his death wasn't just an accident. It was a murder. I spent the next 2 nights watching everything on those drives. My son had uncovered a criminal empire operating inside Ridgefield Trucking. They weren't just moving goods. They were smuggling drugs, laundering cash, even transporting weapons across state lines. He had evidence, names, dates, routes, payments, and at the center of it all, Jolene. My ex-wife had been laundering real estate commissions through the same network. Her clients were shell buyers. The houses she sold were never lived in. They were drop points. The more I watched, the colder I became. Colby had discovered everything, and for that, they killed him. I didn't sleep for days. My grief turned into rage. Not wild anger, but something deeper, sharper, controlled, the kind that plans. Because Colby didn't just leave me a note. He left me instructions. "Start with the oldest one," he'd written. Each flash drive built on the last, connecting every name, every address, every dollar moved. The final drive contained one last video file. It was recorded the night before he died. Colby sat at his desk, pale but determined. "If you're watching this, Dad, then I was right. I didn't know who else to trust. Frank's in on it. So is Jolene. I heard them arguing in the office after hours. She said you'd be easy to destroy, that the story of the careless father would write itself. I'm scared, Dad, but I can't stop now." He paused. "They think I don't know what they're planning. But I do. If I disappear, don't let them win." The video cut out. Silence. I sat there for hours, just staring at the black screen. My fists clenched so tight they left crescent marks in my palms. Son had fought alone and died, trying to protect the truth. Now it was my turn. Started by tracing the addresses on the manifests Colby had flagged. Abandoned warehouses, closed businesses, empty lots. But when I cross-referenced them with real estate filings, guess whose name appeared again and again? Jolene Thatcher. She'd been flipping properties used for illegal shipments, selling to shell companies controlled by Ridgefield executives. Every time a sale closed, she got a commission, and the money disappeared offshore. I drove to one of the warehouses at night. Broken windows, weeds pushing through cracks in the concrete. But inside I found tire marks, fresh ones. Someone was still using it, and when I found the discarded shipping label with Ridgefield's logo on it, I knew I was getting close. I wasn't supposed to find this, and I sure as hell wasn't supposed to live long enough to tell anyone about it, because the next morning, someone tried to break into Colby's apartment. The lock was scratched. The flash drives were gone. All but one, the oldest one, still in my pocket. That's when I realized they knew I was digging. They knew I'd found the truth. And somewhere out there, Jolene and her lawyer were watching, waiting for me to make a mistake. But they made one first. They underestimated how far a father would go for his son. Because now, I had nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. The $250,000. I didn't touch a cent, not yet. That money wasn't for escape. It was for war. Colby's note ended with one line I can't stop reading. Make them pay. And I will. But first, I need to find out who else was involved. Because the deeper I dig, the more I realize Jolene wasn't working alone. Someone else signed those transfer documents. Someone with power. Someone who could make people disappear. And before this is over, I'll make sure they remember the name Roland Thatcher, the man they tried to destroy, the father they underestimated, the storm they never saw coming. Because my son's death wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. Used to think I knew my family. Used to think love was enough. Honesty, hard work, and doing the right thing. But the day I found that metal lockbox under my dead son's bed, I realized how wrong I was. My name's Roland Thatcher, 52 years old. For 20 years, I worked at Brennan Logistics. Long shifts, cold coffee, and aching knees. I wasn't a rich man, but I was a proud one. I had a good home, reliable cars, and a son who called every Sunday just to say, "Love you, Dad." We had enough. More than enough, but not for Jolene. My ex-wife had a word she lived by. More. More money. More status. More everything. Every time I said, "We have what we need, Jolene. A good home. A good life." She'd look at me with those green eyes and say, "More, Roland. Just more." It didn't matter what we built. It would never fill whatever hole was inside her. My brother Dwayne saw it before I did. At a barbecue one summer, he pulled me aside while the grill smoked behind us. "Roland," he said quietly, "Jolene's changed. She's not the same woman you married." "She's just going through a rough patch," I told him. "The real estate market's been tough." But Dwayne just shook his head. "No, brother. She looks at you like you're a disappointment, like you're holding her back. Watch yourself." I didn't. 2 weeks later, my world ended. It was a Thursday. Ordinary. I was at work when the phone rang. "Mr. Thatcher? This is Frank Newcomb from Ridgefield Trucking." I'll never forget the tone in his voice. Flat, controlled, hiding something behind it. "There's been an accident. You need to come to Mercy Hospital right away." By the time I got there, my son was already gone. They told me a shipping container had come loose, snapped its securing chains, and crushed him against a loading dock wall. Instant death. The investigation was quick. Too quick. Barely 72 hours. They called it operator error. Said Colby had been standing in a blind spot. said he hadn't followed proper procedures, and somehow it became my fault. Because I'd raised him, because I'd taught him everything he knew about warehouse safety, because in their eyes, if my son made a mistake, it was because I taught him to. A week after the funeral, a process server walked into the warehouse where I worked, right in front of my entire crew, and shouted, "Roland Thatcher, you've been served." A yellow envelope, heavy as guilt. Inside, divorce papers, and a wrongful death lawsuit. Jolene was suing me, claiming that my negligent parenting, my so-called reckless teachings, led directly to our son's death. Her lawyer, Melvin Ashford, was a shark, a billboard smile with a heart made of ice. He'd crafted a perfect narrative. Roland Thatcher, the stubborn warehouse man who thought safety was for cowards. My own lawyer sat across from me in that dim office, the smell of burnt coffee in the air. "Roland, they've got witnesses," he said, sliding depositions across his desk. "3 of your coworkers. Sworn statements. I read them one by one. Jerry. Watts, 15 years at Brennan, claimed he'd heard me tell Colby that safety rules were for desk jockeys who'd never worked a real day in their lives. Monica? Flora swore she saw me teaching Colby dangerous shortcuts at a Bring Your Kid to Work day a decade ago, and Rick Polson. He said I used to brag during meetings. OSHA can kiss my ass. None of it was true. Not a word. "Jerry owes me money from a Super Bowl bet," I said, my voice shaking. "Monica got written up last month because I reported her mistake. And Rick, he's been bitter ever since I blocked his promotion. Because he was unsafe." "Can you prove that?" my lawyer asked. I couldn't. Their lies had weight. Mine had none. The day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Standing room only. Jolene made sure of it. She'd given an interview to the local news, called herself a mother seeking justice. When she walked in, she looked like grief itself, dressed in black, makeup perfect, tissues already in her hand, and beside her, Ashford, confident, calm, ready to bury me alive. "Ladies and gentlemen of the court," he began, his voice smooth as oil. "This is not just about negligence. This is about a father who spent 20 years teaching his son that rules are meant to be broken, that speed matters more than safety, that getting the job done was worth any risk, and that lesson cost a young man his life." I wanted to stand. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I just sat there, helpless, as the world believed every word. Then Jolene took the stand. Tears flowed on cue. "Roland always cut corners," she sobbed. "He told Colby safety regulations were suggestions. He'd come home bragging about loading trucks faster than anyone else. Our son learned that from him, and it killed him." Ashford leaned in. "Did your husband ever express concern about safety?" "Never," she said, looking right at me. "He said safety meetings were a waste of time. Said handrails and safety zones were for weaklings. I begged him to teach Colby better, but he thought he knew everything. I could feel the walls closing in. Every lie landed perfectly. Every fake tear hit its mark. My lawyer tried to fight back, but Jolene had rehearsed. She had answers ready, like lines in a script she'd written herself. When asked about my spotless safety record, she claimed I'd gamed the system. When questioned about witnesses, she said I'd intimidated workers into silence. Then came the 3 liars, Jerry, Monica, and Rick, each one more confident than the last. Their stories lined up perfectly. Too perfectly, dates, times, even phrases like they'd been reading from the same script. Jerry said I'd once bragged about moving more product than anyone because I skipped the slow rules. Monica claimed she'd kept a journal, pages supposedly, documenting my reckless behavior out of concern. And Rick? He played the hero, the man who tried to report me but was shut down by management who liked my numbers too much. It was flawless fiction. And it worked. My brother Dwayne wasn't even allowed to testify for me. The judge ruled he was biased as family. 20 years of clean records, no incidents, safety awards, all dismissed. Irrelevant, they said. When the gavel came down, it felt like thunder in my chest. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff, the judge said. All marital assets and the full life insurance payout of $800,000 are awarded to Mrs. Jolene Thatcher. $800,000. My son's death turned into profit. Outside, cameras flashed. Jolene stood beside her lawyer, crocodile tears glistening. $800,000 won't bring back my son, she said to the microphones, but at least justice was served. Maybe Roland will think about what he's done. Maybe other fathers will learn from his mistakes. And just like that, she walked away, smiling. I stood on those courthouse steps, surrounded by whispers. My life, gone. My name, poisoned. The woman I'd loved for 26 years had gutted me, publicly, efficiently, and without an ounce of remorse. After that, I moved into a studio apartment on the wrong side of town, peeling paint, a radiator that hissed all night, paper-thin walls where neighbors argued until morning. That's where I lived, among ghosts and echoes. For 3 months, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Colby. His face at that last breakfast. The way he looked like he wanted to tell me something important. But I'd brushed it off. Don't worry, son. It's probably nothing. Now those words haunted me. I started drinking. Whiskey for breakfast. Whiskey for dinner. Whiskey to forget. Dwayne tried to help. He'd show up with groceries, sit with me in silence, sometimes force me to eat. You can't just let her win, he said one night. You need to fight this. With what? I muttered. She took everything. I can't even afford an appeal. The nightmares got worse. In them, I'd see Colby pinned beneath that container, calling for me. And I'd be frozen, just watching, useless. I'd wake up screaming his name until the neighbors pounded on the walls. Then one morning, 3 months after the trial, my phone rang. Mr. Thatcher? This is Paul Brenner from Riverside Apartments. Your son's lease still has 2 months left. What would you like to do with his belongings? Jolene hadn't bothered. Too busy spending the insurance payout. According to Dwayne, she'd already bought a new Mercedes. Put a down payment on a lakefront condo. She was thriving, off the blood of our son. I gripped the phone. The thought of strangers throwing his things away, I said, I'll take over the lease. I'll move in. Are you sure that's healthy? Paul asked gently. It's what I need to do. When Dwayne helped me move, he looked worried. Living in his space, that's heavy, Roland. I need to feel close to him, I said quietly. It's all I have left. She took everything else, but she can't take this. The first time I stepped inside Colby's apartment, my chest tightened. It was like time had frozen. His coffee mug was still by the sink, a ring of dried coffee at the bottom. His jacket hung by the door. The calendar on the wall still showed the month he died, each Sunday marked in red. Breakfast with Dad. The smell hit me next, his cologne mixed with cinnamon candles. Familiar, comforting, heartbreaking. I spent the first 2 days just sitting there, looking at his things, his bookshelf lined with mystery novels and technical manuals from work. His PlayStation still connected to the TV, game paused mid-level, his boots by the door, laces tied like he'd be back any minute. On the 3rd day, I forced myself to start packing. I told myself it was time. I needed to do something, anything, or I'd lose my mind completely. I started with his closet, folded his shirts carefully, the one from his college graduation, the tie I gave him for his first day at Ridgefield. Each piece carried a memory, a weight. Then I stripped the bed, sheets, pillows, blanket, and when I lifted the mattress, I saw it, a metal lockbox, small, heavy, hidden against the wall, coated in dust. My pulse spiked. I'd never seen it before, never even known he had one. I sat on the floor and stared at it. The combination lock gleamed faintly in the afternoon light. Part of me wanted to leave it alone, to respect his privacy, but he was gone, and something about how carefully it was hidden told me this wasn't just personal, this was secret. I tried his birthday. Yo 415 and nothing, our home address, nothing, his social security number. Still, nothing. That's when I noticed something faintly, scratched into the underside of the box. Numbers. Faded but legible. A date, the day before he died. My hands shook as I turned the dial and entered it. The lock clicked, and what I found inside changed everything I thought I knew about my son, about Jolene, about what really happened at Ridgefield Trucking, but that's a story for another night. They say grief has no sound. But that night, when the lock clicked open, the silence that followed was deafening. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid, not knowing that what lay inside would tear open every lie I'd ever believed and expose the truth about my son's death. Inside that dusty metal lockbox was more than just cash. It was evidence. Proof that my boy Colby hadn't died in an accident at all. He'd been murdered. But before that night, before I found the lockbox, I was just a broken man. Alone, ruined, and drowning in guilt. 3 months earlier, I'd lost everything. My son, my marriage, my name. Colby had been my pride, my shadow. He worked with me at Ridgefield Trucking, learning everything I'd learned over 2 decades. We were close. The kind of father and son who didn't just share blood, we shared purpose, until the day my phone rang and my world ended. "Mr. Thatcher," the voice said, "there's been an accident. You need to come to Mercy Hospital right away." By the time I got there, my son was gone. A shipping container had crushed him, killed instantly. They said it was an accident, a failure in safety procedures. But Jolene, my wife, she blamed me. Within a week of the funeral, she served me divorce papers. At work, in front of my crew. Then came the lawsuit, claiming my reckless teachings had caused our son's death. Her lawyer, Melvin Ashford, was relentless, cold, calculating. And when the witnesses came forward, 3 co-workers swearing I'd told Colby to ignore safety rules. Everything I'd built for 20 years collapsed. I remember sitting in that courtroom, watching Jolene cry for the cameras, telling the jury how I'd ruined our son, how my arrogance had killed him. She won everything. The insurance money, the house, the savings, my reputation. And I, Roland Thatcher, was left with nothing but guilt and whiskey. But guilt has a strange way of keeping a man alive, long enough to discover the truth. It began the day I moved into Colby's old apartment. The landlord called about his belongings. I couldn't bear the thought of strangers touching his things, so I moved in, into my son's world, the coffee mug by the sink, his jacket by the door. The calendar still turned to the month he died, with breakfast with Dad written on every Sunday. It was like time had stopped, waiting for me to arrive. For 2 days, I just sat there, remembering, regretting. But on the 3rd day, while packing his bedroom, I lifted the mattress, and there it was, a metal lockbox. I tried every code I could think of, birthdays, addresses, anything. Then it hit me, the day he learned to ride his first bike, July 15th, 2008. Yo 711508. Click, the sound that changed everything. Inside were stacks of $100 bills, neat, crisp, and terrifying. $250,000, and under the money, 6 flash drives, each labeled with dates from the 3 months before Colby's death. At the bottom was a white envelope, 1 word on it. Dad, my heart nearly stopped. I tore it open. His handwriting was careful, steady. Dad, if you're reading this, I'm gone. They'll probably make it look like an accident. The money is from them. I took it as insurance. The drives have everything. Start with the oldest one. Use the money to fight back. Because I know they'll blame you. I'm sorry I didn't listen. I love you, Dad. Make them pay. My world froze. I grabbed my laptop and plugged in the first drive. Inside, videos, audio files, spreadsheets, the first video, dash cam footage. A Ridgefield truck, 2:47 a.m., pulling into an abandoned warehouse. 3 unmarked vans waiting. Men moving boxes that weren't on any manifest. The second video, same thing, different night. The third, the fourth, all identical. Ridgefield was moving something off the books. I opened the spreadsheets. Colby had tracked everything. Truck numbers, driver names, times, values. It was a full-blown smuggling operation. Then came the audio files. The first one made my blood run cold. It was Colby's boss, Frank Newcomb. The new kid in dispatch is asking questions. He's comparing manifests to GPS data, another voice answered. Handle it. Make it clean. We can't afford exposure. That second voice. I knew it. I'd heard it in court. Smooth, arrogant, polished. It was Melvin Ashford, my wife's lawyer. I slammed pause and just sat there shaking. Drive after drive, the truth unfolded. Colby had uncovered a multi-million-dollar drug ring hidden behind Ridgefield's logistics routes, but it was the fourth drive that broke me. A recording of Frank and Melvin discussing my son. The kid's too nosy. Make it look like an accident. Use a container. His old man taught him everything about safety. Irony writes itself. They laughed. They laughed. Then came the fifth drive. Labeled Mom's Betrayal. I didn't want to open it. God help me I didn't, but I had to. It was a video. Recorded in my living room. Jolene sat on our couch. Across from her, Melvin. A bottle of wine between them. The insurance is worth $800,000, he said. Once your son has his accident, file for divorce. Blame Roland for teaching him unsafe practices. I'll handle the witnesses, Jolene smiled. And you're sure Colby won't suffer? It'll be quick, he said. The accident's already arranged. You get the money. We disappear together. She hesitated only once. What about Roland? Melvin laughed. He'll be destroyed. Alive, but ruined. He'll drink himself to death within a year. And then, she laughed. She actually laughed. He always was weak. 26 years of mediocrity. I deserve better. They kissed. I sat staring at the screen, my hands numb, my heart shattering in slow motion. But there was one more file. The last one. Colby's face appeared on the screen, tired but determined. Dad. I know about Mom. I confronted her. She made a call. Said it has to happen tomorrow. I'm scared, but I can't run. They'll find me. I've hidden copies of everything with Uncle Dwayne. If something happens, know that I love you. You taught me to do the right thing. I'm doing it now. I dropped to my knees. My son had known. He'd faced death head-on to protect the truth. I called Dwayne immediately. He answered before the second ring. Roland, thank God, Colby gave me something weeks ago. Told me not to open it unless... He knew, I said. He knew Dwayne. He recorded everything. Jolene and Ashford, they killed him. That night, we went to the FBI agents Patricia Greer and Marcus Coleman watched the first video. Then the next. Then the next. By morning, they had a task force assembled. Your son built a bulletproof case, Agent Greer said. He documented everything. This is one of the most detailed investigations I've ever seen. At dawn, the arrests began. Frank Newcomb, taken from his home in handcuffs, drivers pulled off highways. Mid-route, millions in drugs seized from hidden compartments. Ashford tried to flee, thought. At the airport with fake passports and offshore account papers. And Jolene. She ran too. They found her in Mexico, living under a new name, sipping cocktails by a pool with one of Ashford's associates. The footage of her arrest went viral. She screamed innocence as they dragged her away in handcuffs. But in court, there was no escape. Ashford's empire crumbled. The recordings, the bank transfers, the falsified documents, it all came out. Jolene confessed. Through tears, she said, no one was supposed to die. Melvin promised me it would be just an accident. The prosecutor's words cut like glass. You sold your son's life for money, Mrs. Thatcher. You destroyed your husband. You are exactly where you belong. The jury took less than an hour. Ashford, death. Penalty, Jolene. Life without parole. The witnesses, perjury charges, the insurance company restored the payout to me, plus damages. But the money meant nothing. What mattered was justice. Used it to build something Colby would have been proud of. The Colby Thatcher Foundation, helping families who lose loved ones to workplace violence. The Thatcher Center for Workplace Safety, Training, workers to spot and report illegal operations. Safely, every dollar of his hidden cash went toward saving lives. At Jolene's sentencing, she looked at me, sobbing. "Roland, please, forgive me." I stared at her, feeling nothing but the hollow ache of truth. "Colby died believing in justice," I said. "He died protecting people from the poison you helped spread. You didn't just kill our son. You killed everything good we ever had." Dwayne and I still visit Colby's grave every Sunday. We bring breakfast. 3 plates, 1 for me, 1 for Dwayne, 1 for him. We tell him about the lives his evidence saved, the families his courage protected. He may be gone, but his voice still echoes in every person who fights for truth, and sometimes when I'm alone at his grave, I swear I can still hear him. "Did you see me, Dad? Did you see me go?" And I whisper back, "Yes, son. I saw you, and you never stopped writing, but lately, I've started wondering. Colby said he made copies, plural. We found one with Dwayne. So where are the others? Because someone out there still hasn't been caught, and I think they know. I'm coming."